Hello, everyone, and welcome to All Blaze No Glory, the podcast. I'm about to hand you over to the real host of this podcast, Ashton Rafter, for another Rafters roundup. Just with a wee review on the playoffs again. I know we've done this plenty, and we're Ashton will introduce everyone else.
Hello everyone, thanks Rambo for the introduction. We're on part 4 of 5 of Rafters Roundup Playoff Debrief series. Today I'm joined by myself, Bradley Santelli.
Hello, hello.
Richard.
Hello.
Or Rambo. And Isla Gray.
Hi.
Thank you very much for agreeing to be my guest today on Debrief. First of all, how does it feel since being back from the playoffs? Have you both recovered? First of all, Rambo.
Yeah, I've recovered. It's been hitting me in little waves because I went through a phase of different thoughts. Well, firstly, because we had to drive up the road, I think it kind of took a bit, didn't take the shine off it, but it kind of took the sting out of all the things that I've been feeling if we were still in Sheffield. Yeah, it's been hitting me in waves, just what we've done, but then also realizing we've got a lot of work for next season. But the opportunity that you guys created, in the teams created by winning that for development across the board of the Steel Queens and women's hockey is incredible. So yeah, feel dead proud about that. But it kind of hits me in little waves because there's no, you guys, I think you've touched on this in your podcast, there is no one at work or anywhere else outside of the Steel Queens that fully understands what happened that weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I think, as you said, like we all had to get up the road after that win, and everyone just kind of got back to their normal life, but still had this mad rush and excitement about them. So, but had no one really to chat to about it or say much, and for anyone to really understand the context of that win. So, yeah, as you say, it means huge things for like the future of our development in the country and as a club as well. Isla, how are you feeling after this weekend?
Well, my thoughts were a way back when Rambo come and told me he had about 7 folk at his first practice. And since then, that's mostly what I've thought about, how far the Steel Queens have come. Because I come in probably just a few weeks after that started, basically to have a look at folk to see if they could skate or not. Now there's a big headache because we need ice and we need ice for games and training and all sorts of things. And I think that's really what's hit home to me is the fact that yes, we're almost a victim of our own success at the moment, and we're going to have to fight to actually keep going because we don't have the ice time that we would absolutely love to have. So if there's anybody out there that has spare ice, please get in touch with us.
Or like 200 mil and wants to build an ice rink for us.
One of the two.
Yeah. And would you say that's kind of what our main limiting factor is at the moment for us as a club, just getting that ice time availability in order for our development?
Well, the sport that we have, right, cannot function without ice. Unlike, let's say, football, you can stick a couple of jerseys down in a park and make a football pitch in minutes. You cannot do that unless you have ice. Now, it's fair enough people say, oh, well, you can go and roller skate. There is similarities, but it's not the same. So, yeah, my main worry at the moment is ice. And probably because I've been in this game for such a long time. And when I say game, most people know that I'm a figure skater. But even when I was young, I skated in a curling rink and often had to train on end ice, which is very difficult putting a program on end ice when you know you've got to full ice. So yeah, that's my main concern just now.
So you've been fighting this battle for most of your life then, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
and
since I was
getting a wee bit tired of
3
it
years
now.
old. Yes, since I was 3 years old. Ice.
I'll just keep kind of you on the subject at the moment, Isla. Obviously, you're saying like you've been a figure skater before. As like a woman in sport, how did that playoff weekend feel watching all the other women's teams compete against each other from all over the country? Do you know, as another woman, how did that feel?
Well, For ice hockey, I think it's fantastic, because when I was young, if somebody had said there was somebody playing ice hockey and they were female, you'd have probably thought they had horns growing out their head, because it was mainly male. And I absolutely mean that, to be saying, what on earth are you actually talking about? Seeing as I was very young, they would probably think I was being a bit stupid. And for me to see where the Steel Queens have come from, I was never ever nervous about the Steel Queens at the weekend, because I just know they can pull it out the bag. And they have done on several occasions. We have this, we are a very unique club. Not only do we have great players, we just have great team efforts when it's absolutely necessary. And we are a family. And that is the one thing that I don't think there's many clubs have, is the aspect of everyone gets on. Now, yeah, every club has ups and downs, but we always manage to get over them and achieve what we want to achieve. And that's exactly what we did at the weekend. So, yeah, was I nervous about it? Not really.
That's good. I'm glad you weren't nervous about it. I think what you said earlier about if a woman came and told you that they played ice hockey, you thought they had horns, like that's quite like a statement about how women playing ice hockey was viewed back when you were younger. And like it's quite amazing how being a steel queen and someone says they're a steel queen, it doesn't necessarily make someone think like that. And like the club has actually created its own purpose and its own like place for people to be who like exactly who they want to be, and not try and fit in teams that maybe they weren't made to be on. How does it feel to have that environment created, as well as all the benefits of like having that family environment and things?
Well, I have to look at one of our players, Jill McDermott, who's I know has been in hockey for years, and she said herself once to me that when she plays with the team, the men take over, because that's the only place that women were really able to go to recce teams and what have you. There wasn't that opportunity to go to somewhere like the Steel Queens. So yeah, it is a big difference. You've got to remember, I'm 69 now. So I'm talking about a way back when I was 3 years old. So that's 66 years. And if you look back then, it was totally different. It's a totally different game altogether now. It's faster. Even, the Steel Queens would probably have beaten most of the male teams that are going around or were in that day and age. So, yeah, for me, it's fantastic, I think, that we can actually field all, Rambo's talking just now about 60 players that we may have. You'd have been lucky. I even think about 30, am I correct in saying this, Rambo? Even 30 years ago, when Rambo started, what, you maybe had about 3 girls in your club?
Yeah, I think the thing is, in terms of women's hockey, it's certainly the growth. I mean, Solway, what people forget, Solway, a lot of people see us as junior to Solway in terms of how long they've been around. And Solway have been around longer than us, but I think they only last year celebrated their 10th anniversary as a women's club. So, and they were the first ones to do it, and set the path for the rest of us. But essentially, we've only been around 3 years less than them, but it feels like it's so much longer because the way hockey's developed. Even just before the COVID lockdown and stuff, I would get folks saying, if I was saying that I coach the Caledonia Steel Queens women's team, you get funny looks from like folk, and folk would ask you if you were doing it just so you could get a girlfriend and all this sort of stuff. And now, like, you say that to folk, and there's not the same reaction about like, oh, there must be some ulterior motive, or you're a weirdo or whatever. It's like women's hockey is cool now. And like, it's things like the PWHL, it's things like what you guys are doing, Solway have done, things that Faye Andrews has done with the WNHL. I mean, how cool was that weekend? Like, there was merch, there was announcements, there was music, there was goal songs for each team. It was brilliant. And women's hockey is cool now. Not saying it wasn't cool before, but what I mean is like people are starting to get it that women's sport is just sport, and it's not like women's sport and men's sport. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Were you going to add something to that, Bradley?
It was making me think of like kind of the trend that's happening in basketball and like what we saw with the NCAA March Madness. Everybody was talking about how like much cooler and much more highly watched the women's team was this year, and kind of same with the WNBA versus the NBA. All the talk is, oh, the NBA is boring. Everybody wants to be watching the WNBA right now, and they're getting like crazy viewership, and it's spreading into other female sports as well. Which I think is really cool. Like obviously us from the hockey community, we're all stoked about like the PWHL and stuff, but sometimes I find in like women's sports, sometimes you can get isolated into your own sport. But it's cool to be seeing that like there's excitement for, you know, women in sport across the different communities. Like we even saw that here in the UK. I know like when the Lionesses, you know, won their big tournaments and stuff, like it was hopefully game changing for women in sport across all sports here. And I just think that's really special and exciting. And I like to be a part of it.
I think we could that could be a whole new podcast topic itself as well. But it is something I will say on what you said before, Rambo, about people saying that you have an alternative motive to forming an inclusive team because of the reasons you mentioned before, like as a woman as well joining an all men's team, you know, you'd be questioning your motives as well, saying why would you want to do that? Are you just after a boyfriend kind of thing, or you just, you know, and like that would be kind of comments you would expect to get because you would feel like it wasn't a natural thing to do, whereas the Seal Queens just feels like a natural club to be a part of now, and it's just a really great thing that you guys are doing. Another thing you mentioned before was having that great you know, leadership and teamwork whenever you need it in situations that are, you know, maybe close knit. Maybe we're at an overtime period, or there's a penalty shot lined up that needs to be called. And I just want to give like credits to you guys as a family, like as a team that work together. You and Isla, Rambo, that do form like, because that bond you guys have, you know, and keeping the team together is incredible. So how did it feel in those overtime games and against Cambridge? So bring it back to Saturday of playoffs. How Rambo as a coach in a WNHL playoff final, semi-final, how was that, and how did you find the pressures of that?
Well, I was more nervous, I have to say, heading into the semi than the final, and I think twofold. One, the travel down the day before was absolutely horrendous, so I was super stressed when we got there on Friday and all that sort of stuff. But secondly, just because of it was like the unknown, right? And it felt, and I know I would never have, I done my best to not let you guys feel any of this, but also it felt like we can't have done all this to bow out in the semi-final. You know, so that pressure was more, I felt more intense. And also because Cambridge have a kind of similar origin story to us this season in the WNHL, as far as that goes. I know they're a new club altogether, but they've kind of pooled their resources with uni backgrounds and all that sort of stuff, and then created this great program in Cambridge as well. I was nervous heading into that game, and then obviously you guys combined and Brad scored that goal, that wrister, which is just proof if you get them through and no one can see it, it's going to go in, right? When that went in, there was like I kind of felt like this huge sigh of relief, because I was like, right, okay, this goalie that seemingly everyone's topped up as being unbeatable, we've just beaten with a kind of loopy wrister from the point, and exactly the way we play hockey,
game, like
which is like battle along the boards, win the puck, make the pass, take a shot, right? That's our game, and so even, you know, obviously they scored towards the end of the period, and that changed things, but we had gotten that was on a power play, so I started to get a bit worried when we were taking lots of penalties, and I think there were some of them that were justified in penalties, and there was the one that they got their goal on, which I'm not going in. I felt was maybe a bit of a soft call. I can see why the ref called it. You know, it was a big collision, whatever. But I felt so we started to get in a bit of penalty trouble, and somehow, despite the fact that Cambridge's power play percentage during the year was ridiculous, they were really potent on power play. And one thing that Dibs had identified and I had identified, having watched the game, was keep out the box, somehow like we just managed to click and kill penalties so well. We had the 5 minute power play, and
Yeah,
5 minute
we had a 5 minute penalty kill. Yeah,
essentially was a 7 minute
sorry,
kill.
sorry again.
Sorry from the two
No,
hosts here.
yeah, but actually during that period, that's when I started to be like, come on, we just need a goal now. Like we need a goal now because we deserve to win this now because we've just like Katie Trachtenberg, sorry, and the defense, they basically just said no and actually dominated them. We had more chances on the penalty kill than they had on the power play, and that was amazing, and it just showed the team's resilience, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, the overtime period was a worry, but I really didn't want it to go to a penalty shootout because I don't like them. So I was glad it got settled by players on the ice playing hockey rather than, a skills competition. Either way, it would have been heartbreaking for either team. And yes, I would have been mental if we'd won a penalty shootout, but I was glad that it finished the way it did. And it was poetic that it was wee Jess, who had been going through a bit of a hard time in the game, was, getting a bit frustrated with herself. And I said this to her at the time, we forget that, and this is one of the things I forget because I've been coaching essentially adults for all the uni time.
Yeah.
Forget that she is only 16 years old, and it was like poetic that she scored that goal. And the whole setup I've watched that clip over and over again. I just love the setup to the 1-2, Michelle laying off, and then the little delay from Maggie. And Dibs said to me when we're driving back to the hotel, he's like, we just needed the space. And we were going to score. So yeah, it felt that once that goal went in and we won that game, I felt fairly confident that we were going to do the rest of it. Although I knew Cardiff were tough, it just felt like, we're now here, we've arrived, we know what we're doing, we can do this tomorrow. So yeah, sorry, that was a very in-depth analysis of how.
No, but I'm listening to you because I'm literally following along every word you're saying, and I think Isla felt probably every emotion as well on the bench without maybe passing too many comments at the time. Isla, I know you carry a lot of feelings, and you carry the feelings of all the girls on the bench, and you understand what everyone's thinking and feeling, and having your face there was like amazing just to have that support. Isla, like what did you observe in those kind of crucial moments that worked well for us as a team and got us through?
I just felt the whole weekend that in fact before I had actually gone down to Sheffield, I had made my mind up that to the best of my ability I was going to keep everybody with their feet on the ground or their skates on the ice, because it's so easy to lose in competition of any kind if you start thinking too far ahead. And that was one of the reasons why before the semis I asked everybody just to sit and be absolutely silent, to just bring everybody into their own space and know where they were going. One of my main jobs, and Rambo probably doesn't realise this, but he will now, was really to keep him where he should have been. I know he's going to probably, as I say, hate me for saying this, but before the third period of the semi-final, he was really upset because he knew he was going to have to stop playing certain people. And that is Rambo's absolute pet hate. He absolutely hates not being able to play every player. All I said to him was, every girl out there is relying on you, so pull yourself together. And that's where I feel my role comes in. Having said that, when we went into overtime, I was so engrossed in the game, I failed to hear that it was actually sudden death. So I was getting quite annoyed with everybody celebrating until Lewis said to me, Isla, we've won. So, yeah, because I'm thinking, why on earth are they all celebrating?
Too focused.
It's 5 minutes. And I honestly thought it was 5 minutes. We had to skate for 5 minutes, play for 5 minutes. So it kind of, the whole time, that was in my eyes before I went down there, was just to keep everybody on a level. And I'm speaking from experience, having been in competitions, a very, very young child, taking figure skaters into competition, and making sure that you have that absolute level of confidence. And sometimes not even saying it to people, just your demeanour can just make people do that. And I hope that that's why all the girls on the bench at any time, and I'm talking about in any game, can come and just say, and there was one girl come and said to me, Isla, I just don't know how I'm going to get this back. By the end of that game, she had it back, and it was just quietly speaking to her. That was all that happened. And she'll know who she is if she listens to this podcast.
I'm sure that all the Steel Queens listen to all the podcasts.
Yes.
It'd be better if they know what's good for them.
I think what's so important now is your role in supporting people that are great leaders, and you need, as well as great leaders, you need great followers and supporters, and like I think that's where you are, like exactly as you say, like your role comes in the most important in that situation where you know our leader, and Rambo is such a great leader, is getting emotional making those decisions, because we know that he does care about development, and he wants everyone to feel a part of a win and be a part of this, a part of our achievement as a club. But you're also waiting this decision of us getting promotion and getting players in the position that they can also develop, like players that are aiming for international level hockey, and you want to see that. That's your long-term vision, Rambo. So like a lot of it was like weighing up a basically this is, it's all or nothing here, and as hard as that was, like we needed Isla there to be like, well, you have to do what you have to do, and like yeah, as tough as that was in that moment, we obviously are really thankful for it. And the girls will hopefully understand whenever the future does come.
I think it's really representative of like good coaching to be able to take all that, balance it. And you're doing this in the middle of a game where you guys, you know, have to be keeping your cool. I think that's the biggest thing for a coach, is like when, you know, if a player, like you're saying, Isla, if a player comes to you and is like down on their luck or whatnot, like you guys have got to be the one to, you know, help encourage them, but also, you know, like keep the whole team together, and also keep yourselves together. So it really takes a lot. Like
Yeah,
we really appreciate it.
so hats off. I guess we'll wrap up the last couple of minutes of this interview with the two of you with Rambo. What would be your highlight of the weekend on playoffs?
It's hard to say one highlight of the weekend, but there's a few things. I'll mention a few things just because, well, you know me, I'm not one for brevity. So I mean, obviously, Wee Jess's goal, the shootout, sorry, the overtime sudden death goal was, I've mentioned, one of my highlights. I can pretty much rehearse exactly what happened from the start of overtime to when that happened. I'm
Yeah,
not going to do
and I
that.
think it coming from Maggie Agnew as well, and I know kind of person that's been there from the beginning to someone who has come in and step into the shoes of people like that.
Very poetic.
Very poetic indeed.
Yeah. So yeah, that goal itself. I mean the celebration after that game. Obviously, there was relief. There was the Live in La Vida Loca in the hotel, which is not really a highlight, but I won't
Good
forget
memory.
anytime soon. And then really just, you know, I caught the tail end of one of Tatiana's speeches, but those sort of things, the moments that you guys, as much as winning the games is important, it's like the moments of seeing all you guys together and enjoying yourselves and like, you know, be enjoying each other's companies and stuff. Those little things are really important too to me, because it's like, you know, at the end of the day, whilst, you know, I love this and I love seeing everyone develop, not everyone's going to make GB, or not everyone's going to make a career of hockey, but you're all going to make really great memories, and I think that's one of the big things. I absolutely loved. I mean, the final. I could have done without us letting them tie, but we played well in that final. I felt we squandered a little bit in that final, and maybe should have been like a couple of goals to the good when they did get that second goal. But these things are said to try us. And then it was really nice seeing Kate. Obviously, Kate's had a fantastic season, but like Kate scoring after being with the club since 2018 when we started, when we had our first game, and been with us all the way through, when she couldn't really play in any of the competitive fixtures, she was always in friendlies against recce teams, and I think she played Bristol, obviously, but
Yeah, that's a very good point. Rambo should
Yeah.
never actually had a nationals experience and
Mhm.
winning
then
a championship. So
she got the game-winning goal in that, and
Yeah.
brought it home for us. And I thought that was a nice touch. I'm not saying that we should have went out and planned these things, but it just seemed to all happen that way. So yeah, I think that was all highlights for me. And then there was a couple of like performances, people turning it, like Katie Trackenberg turned it into this different animal in terms of forechecking. And I mean, essentially after the final, this woman from Chelmsford who was on the Cardiff bench because she was shared with Cardiff. I don't know quite the logistics of that, but that's what she's doing. She said to me that we've got one of the best forechecks she's seen. I was like, well, that's good because that's all we can really train if we're doing small area games all the time. So I'm glad that the stuff we do at training works. And then just one of the people I think I really should shout out to, and I know this, maybe comes out of left field to some people that maybe watch, but our captain Lynn, she went on the ice during the game for the warm up, and she didn't play in either of the games. She didn't get a shift because of the way the games were and stuff. But is an absolutely fantastic leader. She makes sure everyone's doing. She gets people ready for the warm up. And gets everybody ready. And she's just Lynn has said herself that she's not the best the best leader. Is not the best player, but she's the best captain that we could have had for this. And she kept everyone calm. The energy she was giving off the bench, she was so positive. It was fantastic. And then, you can see from that reflection on the trophy as we lift it, just how positive she was after that. So, yeah, it's amazing, and those little things all add up to just an amazing club, and just an amazing atmosphere. And as I say, we might not make a career out of this, but we'll make plenty of memories along the way, and that's what's really important.
and finally, Isla, yourself, what would be your highlights of the weekend?
Well, actually, Rambo's really touched on it because, I have to commend Lynn to the hilt, because to be the captain of a team and not get on the ice, but and I'm going to just say this outright, she is the greatest captain we have ever had, because every other captain at some point has been on the ice, and Lynn did do that. But she took that team to where we are today in a whole lot of other ways, from when she comes in every Wednesday near enough to improve her skating ability, etc. The way she greets people. I've asked Lynn, I don't know how many times, Lynn, would you do this? Would you do that? Because as you know, I'm all useless when it comes to anything that involves anything technical. But my highlight had to be when we lifted the trophy. And the reason I'm saying that is because in me, right, that trophy wasn't just for the girls that were actually there. It was for every single girl that has ever crossed the Steel Queen's path, right from the very beginning to the end. And that's where I'll finish it, because every one of them has, from the 7 that started in the beginning to right now, taken us to where we are. Because without them winning even little games, we would never be where we are right now.
I think one other highlight that I just touch on briefly was just 7 years ago, I asked Beth if she would support a women's team coming from Edinburgh area, and it was originally a uni team, and see where it goes, and she did. And just her reaction when that final buzzer went in the final, I have never seen Beth so excited in my entire life. Like Beth's the calm one. I'm the crazy one that gets emotional and excited. Beth's the calm one, and she leapt from one of the little benches in Sheffield across to the other one, and I'm glad I managed to catch her, because otherwise we were both going flying. And it just showed just how much it meant. And what she's posted on Facebook since about she never had the opportunity that some of these younger girls are going to have, and I think that's what is so special about what the Steel Queens have done in the last in the last several years, but certainly in this last season, and the decision to go for it in the league has been the right one.
And thank you guys so much for being the workhorses behind everything, and for all your leadership and hard work that's been put in all through the season and leading up to this weekend. I guess we'll wrap up there unless you've got any final words to say about the weekend.
Nothing about the weekend, but the other thing I just wanted to touch on, because I know she'll listen to this podcast, is just how great it was, like meeting like people like Lisa Santelli and Yolanda and all
the moms,
not
all the
only,
hockey moms.
not only because she brought me chocolate and stuff, but also because like it just shows that obviously you guys are going away and you guys have this really positive outlook on what you're getting out the Steel Queens, and to see how excited Lisa was to meet, me, to see a game, and all the rest of it just showed that, like, obviously the Steel Queens are a big part of people's lives. Even if they're there, they can only make once a month training, or they're there all the time, or they're playing all the big games, or they're not. And I've had that from a few players, like some of the development players and stuff, telling me, this is the best winter time they've ever had because they found something that they love doing, and it's so the whole season. It just doesn't boil down to that one weekend. I know games and everything boil down to a few moments, but this whole season's been absolutely magical.
Truly has.
And maybe finishing on that, have a great holiday, both of you, and maybe you'll just need your bikinis to get through the airport.
Clarify, by the way, we're time of recording. Ashlyn and Bradley are going to Magaluf. I know, Mum, this isn't live, so people won't get the context of this. And Magaluf Airport is currently flooded, which is why Mum is suggesting that they swim through there.
So yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
We will see how that goes.
Here all night, folks.
Probably not going to leave Glasgow tomorrow.
We might be here tomorrow night.
It's a sad time when it's sunnier in Glasgow than it is in Magaluf.
Truly.
Well, good night, guys. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for part 5 of the playoff debrief series.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks again.